Thank you for listening to Scandinavian Crimes Podcast. Be sure to check out the episode links and be part of our other social media platforms where you can leave a topic suggestion or even share some of your insights regarding the subject matter of the episode. We will always do our best to provide a well-researched episode, but sometimes due to limited access to information and translation issues, some information can be lost. It is therefore good to do your own research and get a deeper understanding of a case of your own interest. So with that all said, let us start today's episode.
Welcome to another episode of Scandinavian Crimes. My name is Devante, and say hello to my lovely co-host, Delila.
Hi!
And on this podcast, we will cover famous Scandinavian criminals who made their mark throughout Scandinavian history. So this story is considered to be the most gruesome and bizarre case in Finland's history. Now, I know we say that every time we talk about Finland, but this is definitely a really bizarre case. On November 21st, 1998, in Hyvinkää, Jarno Sebastian Elg was sentenced to life in prison for murdering and torturing a 23-year-old man. What makes this case different is that Elg was eating the victim's body parts after cutting them up in a satanic ritual-like manner. Now, due to how gruesome this case was, the Finnish media and news outlets, as well as official documents, have been redacted. So there are a few sources discussing the case details. However, covering this story is based on the information that is available to the public and obviously what got published, but unfortunately there is no other details any further than what is publicly available to both you and me. So without further ado, here is the story of the cannibal and the Satanist, Jarno Elg. Elg was born in 1975 and is a Finnish Satanist who is loyal to his beliefs. According to sources, Elg's personal life and childhood were extremely rough. As a child, he was attracted to the violence where he tortured and killed animals. He suffered from substance abuse since the age of 10, and as a young teen, he attempted suicide on various occasions and received psychiatric help. Throughout most of his teens, he immersed himself in Satanism and believed in extreme individualism which Satanism preached. On one occasion, Elg got arrested for setting fire to a medieval stone church in Kirkkonummi at the age of 16. After his release, he never went back to finish his high school certificate and further immersed himself into the satanic philosophy and practice of individual freedom. Terhi Tervashanka, Micah Riska, and a 16-year-old runaway were together with the victim, and they were essentially just hanging out. They later went together to Elg's apartment after a night out on the town with a couple of drinks. Around midnight, they arrived at Elg's apartment where they continued drinking and discussing music. Elg, who was considered the leader of the friend group, tried to educate them about his favorite black metal album, Cannibalism Chronicle by the Norwegian band Ancient. As they listened through the album, the victim shared his opinions about the album, which was not appreciated by Elg. This frankly infuriated Elg to the point he punched the victim. The 16-year-old and Riska got involved in the assault and they proceeded to torture the victim. Elg instructed them to tie the victim with a collar and make him walk around like a dog. They also took turns urinating on him and burning him with an iron. Elg continued and repeatedly punched the victim in the face. The others then placed him on a couch until he regained consciousness. The victim yelled at Elg to stop, which irritated him. Being told off is something Elg despises. It is the opposite of Satanism, which is true freedom and individuality and is not listening to law and order. This triggered Elg to pick up scissors and hit the victim above the head. The victim cried even louder, and that is when Elg instructed the others to duct tape him silent. He begged for his life and to show him mercy while he tried to escape the apartment. The friends restrained him with tape on his hands and feet and the entire head in order to completely silence the victim. This was the deciding factor of the death of the victim. He died unable to breathe. They continued to torture the victim while listening to the Cannibalism Chronicle album until they realized he was dead. It was at this time that the disposal of the body started. They started mutilating his body using scissors to cut off pieces of flesh and knives to remove his heart, intestines, and genitals. During this process, Elg ate some of the body parts. It is not clear if the others joined in on the cannibalism, but we do know that he himself did. For the larger body parts, Elg, Tervashanka, and Riska went to the bathroom to cut the victim into smaller pieces with a saw. It was at this moment that the 16-year-old left the apartment, not wanting to take part in it any further. The next morning, Elg and Tervashenka sobered up and continued playing with the victim's head, laughing while blowing the head using firecrackers. On the 24th of November, 3 days after the murder, a man dumping his trash at Kupula landfill found the severed human leg on the mountain of garbage. Within the hour, police and medical pathologists arrived at the scene. The pathologist studied the leg and concluded that it was severed by a non-medical instrument due to its uneven and choppy end. The initial estimation was that the limb had belonged to a man between 20 and 60 years old. A forensic examination concluded that the leg had been cut off 2 to 3 days before it was found, sometime over the previous weekend. The police didn't initially think the killer discarded the leg at the landfill. It was more likely that the leg ended up there in the dump after being discarded in the trash somewhere in the regional network serving over 1 million people. Police worked their way through all trash taken to the landfill between the 23rd and the 24th of November, in addition to any clue as to who murdered him as well as who he was. Officers had to search by hand due to the spread of trash done by the trash trucks. In the end, they worked their way through more than 400 truckloads before suspending the search just before Christmas. Besides the leg and stomach, no other body parts were ever discovered. When finding the stomach tissue, they were able to get more information about the victim. Based on the small tissue, they were able to identify the victim's age, life situation, and general alcohol consumption. He had high alcohol content in his body, indicating that he was heavily intoxicated at the time of his death. Also, according to the stomach tissue, there was heavy wear, which means he was a heavy drinker during his lifetime. They then assumed the victim was likely financially strapped situation where he was living off of welfare. This made it possible for investigators to study welfare records, which led to DNA tests confirming the victim was a 23-year-old man who lived by himself at the address provided. This could explain why nobody could report him missing. Once investigators were able to identify the victim, police officers took the streets of Hyvinkää and questioned people. A couple of witnesses mentioned the young man in question was in a company of Elg and his friends on the weekend. The group also bragged to their friends about what they had done and that it was a perfect murder. And on the 8th of December 1998, police arrested Elg, Tervashenka, Riska, and the 16-year-old. Elg and Riska had a history of disturbing the law and are not unfamiliar with police. However, it was nothing that would have raised a red flag leading to such a brutal crime. The crimes were such a destruction of property, theft, and assault, both due to alcohol abuse. Tervashenka and the 16-year-old did not have any criminal records. After the arrest, police searched Elg's apartment and discovered many items related to the satanic practice. The number 666, literature including the Beast chapter of the Book of Revelations, skull jewelry, knives, and other memorabilia. They also found the victim's blood scattered everywhere in the apartment, on the floor, the walls, the ceiling, and with a short DNA test, they could prove it was the victim's blood. All 4 of the suspects were apathetic about the crime they were charged with. Elg did not respect the law and the order, and he was not cooperative during questioning at all. A story that got leaked to the media was Elg laughed throughout his entire interrogation. He explained with delight how they treated the victim's body, and the cutting the torso was particularly funny to him. Tervashenka stated that the murder and the disposal of the body were not a ritual or a sacrifice. She said that they were too drunk to notice the victim suffocating and that they couldn't make any proper judgment of the situation, which led them to overdo it. She confronted that in the drunken chaos, they realized the victim was dead and went to dispose of the body. They took him to the bathroom, intending to dismember him with a saw, and the 16-year-old left before the dismemberment took place. She denied the claims of cannibalism. Mika Riska and the 16-year-old boy did not sleep at the apartment. The next morning when they woke up, they started drinking again and went to Elg's apartment. When they arrived, Elg continued cutting up the body while Teddy cleaned up the blood. They all then packaged the parts into garbage compartments and distributed the trash cans throughout downtown Hyvinkää. The hearing was in Hyvinkää District Court in 1999. According to the prosecutor, the crime was inspired by Satanism. The motive could be found in the 11 satanic rules of the earth. Rules 1, 3, and 4 states, Rule 1, do not give your opinions or advice unless you are asked. Rule 3, when in another's lair, show him respect or else do not go there. Rule 4, if a guest in your lair annoys you, treat him cruelly and without mercy. The prosecutor argued that they incited themselves spiritually to sacrifice the victim in a way Satanism hints the high alcohol consumption and the black metal music playing in the background. The victim annoyed Elg in his lair and was treated cruelly without mercy. The rest of the trial took place behind closed doors. No members of the public or press were allowed inside the courtroom. The details were so horrendous that the court sealed the details of the case and could not be public until 40 years later. Law enforcement did not want to inspire copycat crimes. On August 11th, 1999, Elg was sentenced to life in prison. A court-appointed psychologist evaluated that despite being drunk, Elg committed the murder knowing what was happening. A life sentence in Finland for someone with no criminal record would be 12 years. However, Elg was previously charged with an animal cruelty for torturing and killing his dog. Ironically enough, he missed the 10th satanic rule of the earth, which states, "Do not kill non-human animals unless you are attacked or for your food." Tervashanska received a sentence of 8 years and 6 months for her involvement in the crime. A psychological evaluation concluded that she was partially insane. Riska was given 2 years and 8 months in prison for his role in the murder, assault, and necrophilia. It was believed that Riska was the only one who performed necrophilia with the victim's body, while the others just simply watched. The only 16-year-old was found innocent as the court concluded. The 16-year-old was found innocent as the court concluded that he was forced into a situation by his older, more dominant friends. Shortly after his arrest, he was taken to a psychiatric facility for treatment after the whole incident. In 2016, Elg was granted parole, and today he is a free man. The Court of Appeal stated that he had finished his high school certificate and was employed full-time. His employer routinely gives good feedback, and he has not had any other brushes with the law since his release. His exact whereabouts are unknown. Tervashanska found a job and worked in the parks of the city of Hämeenlinna. She stayed out of trouble for a while, when on the 7th of June 2007, she struck again, killing a man while drunk. She received 10 years in prison for this murder. While she was in jail, she married a man who had been convicted of killing someone with a samurai sword. After they both left prison, they moved to the northern Finland area, and the couple had a child together. Tervashanska has reportedly been clean since 2013, and there have been no reports of crime on her. Riska was released once he had served his sentence, and other than being caught driving under the influence, he had no additional criminal charges. After this case, the media discussed and criticized Satanism and how it influences younger generation. In rural Finland, people are more conservative and Christianity is the most practiced religion. The mere mention of Satan worship or Satanism in connection with Hyvinkää murder in 1998 was a huge worry for the public. There were experts discussing the dangers of Satan on TV. This media exposure basically generalized all teens who wore black t-shirts and listened to Metallica saying that they were seen as a risk to convert into Satanism. My, what an interesting case. So there's a lot to actually swallow here. Pause. But first of all, the last statement in general is people often misunderstand that just because, teens like certain types of music and trends does not mean that they're going to get into Satanism per se. But yeah, this was a roller coaster of feelings and things. It was pretty straightforward. The cops did everything they were supposed to, so I'm not really judging them on that part. They found the body, did the investigation, found the person, but because of the last statement, I feel like they were highly motivated because they knew the town and the area that they lived in was Christianity was highly practiced. So I felt that they was extra motivated because of their, whatever their personal prejudice is. But the crimes are gruesome, absolutely gruesome. Even the dog crime, him killing animals was already a sign that he is showing signs of psychopathy. In children, that is a very blatant sign. If your child enjoys killing animals, then that's a sign that there's something going on. And this is my personal theory before I let you talk to Delila and all that stuff real quick. I think that I personally do not practice nor care for Satanism. But the point is that I think he was using that Satanism as a way to kind of disguise his already budding psychopathy. And it was an excuse because the rules did align with what, his actions were. He was going against the law and order of the land. But, you can tell he picked and chose which rules and how he chose to follow them. So that's when things started to get, foggy. So that's my whole thing. So this is definitely very interesting, especially because this is like, I think around the 80s and 90s there was a lot of satanic panic. Get it? Satanic panic rhymes. But there was, not even just in Finland, I think there was a lot of, even in the US, there was kind of a rise in this satanic kind of thing, especially because this is when rock and roll was heavy and people did not like the moniker that a lot of these rock and rollers were wearing and presenting themselves. So there was a lot of worry, especially Christianity is one of the largest religions on the planet. So, but I don't know, let me know, what did you think about this whole case?
So this is so, and everything is interesting about this whole case. But I just want to make some clarifications before we go into our discussion part. So back in the days, during the 80s and the 90s, in general, in the whole world, it was what was trendy back then, basically, was this rock kind of theme and Satanism and basically worshiping Satan. And it was kind of because most European and wealthy countries, I guess, had some type of Christianity in it. It's there's Catholics and there's different kinds, but basically Christianity was a huge thing. And they were very worried that their kids would be into Satanism and worshiping Satan and everything. So this case actually was super scary for a lot of people, because in Scandinavia and also in Finland, majority of the people were Christians back then and believers. So in Hyvinkää, which is basically a country town in Finland, not much going on, very, calm, it seemed like. But beneath this whole thing, there was a lot of social problems. There were a lot of youth alcoholic consumption and also drug consumption in certain ways as well. And it wasn't really the best back then. And on top of this, the satanic panic, everyone was afraid of the development of Satanism. And the black metal was the way to spread awareness. And that was the biggest fear, in the whole, for most of the community. And I just want to make sure that this is Satanism in itself is not bad. It's basically the freedom and individuality of a person. You can't, so that you don't feel limited by, laws and certain things in Christianity and stuff. So in itself, the whole thing about Satanism isn't the bad part. It's the extremists that is not good. And extremists in any religion is actually not good. So I just want to make sure and clarify that it's not religion's fault in anything, and when it comes to violence, at least my personal thoughts about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say something I kind of said something similar to that already, but I was saying I think people get the name itself was meant to be of shock value, because even till this day 30% of the population identifies as Christian. That is a lot of people. So imagine in the 90s, and this is obviously for boomers as well, this is during a time where boomers specifically, they were not fond of hip hop, rock and roll, anything that was scary, was too different. So of course a group of people are going to come together and be like, hey, I want to do this. And then in order to be shocking for shock's value, they're going to name a religion called Satanism, which in its actual practice, when its actual practice isn't about worshiping Satan at all. Like Delila said, it's about
Satan is basically a symbol of freedom.
Yeah, basically Satanism, to be opposite of what whatever they believe was oppressing them. So it was more like a symbol, like symbolism of what, you know, it represented to them, more so than them actually worshiping Satan. But because of the name, they got this classification. And like Delila said as well, also because of the extremists, the few who took it way too far, because, and let's be honest, I was going to touch upon this later, but since we're talking about it, a lot of the people who were the extremists were people who had already forms of mental illness, and they were using Satanism as a disguise and excuse to go and be terrible, horrible people when they already had issues. They could have been Christian, they could have been Islamic, they could have been Buddhist, whatever they decided to identify as. They already had mental issues. They was going to be extremist regardless. It just so happened that those few were under the guise of, you know, practicing Satanism, and unfortunately they got like this really bad rap, and you know, and they got targeted by a generation that was not familiar or not comfortable with change, and still isn't comfortable with change. As we all know, boomers are very entitled. So
because as you mentioned earlier as well, they actually, like, the media and everything was like discussing about this, and like these experts were saying Satanism is like bad and Satan worshippers and everything, like without even really knowing the philosophy of like Satanism at all. And it was actually, this whole case really scared the community in the whole country actually. And I actually, like, this is very common that extremists in a religion can change and alter like many people's views of the religion.
Yeah.
And I don't think you should blame the religion in itself. I think you should blame the person, because they, like, everyone should have a consciousness of realizing that it's not okay to kill people, for example. And most religions don't really say that it's okay to kill a person. But it's how you interpreted it that can, in this case, as he said, justify the rules or whatever.
Yeah.
But as we already know, Elg, or Jarno Elg, was already
crazy.
Not following the rules of Satanism, because he killed animals, which is against
literally what, the second rule, I think, or something like that.
Yeah. So I was like, he's just using the religion and the philosophies because he likes being this like free, not following the laws, yada 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 person. But, and he likes violence as well. Like he's like, he was always like that since he was young.
And then the funny part is, as well, just feeding off of that, is even the rule number 2, when it says like, let's reiterate the rules before I make this explanation. So rule 1 was do not give your opinions or advice unless you're asked. Rule 3, these are the 3 rules basically they were using to to kind of use against his own logic. So rule 3, when another's lair, show him respect or else do not go there. Rule 4, if a guest in your lair annoys you, treat him cruelly and without mercy. Now, even though this is still open to interpretation, the rules still don't imply to kill someone.
That's what I'm saying. Like, no religion like applies, or at least what I know of, but most religions does not apply to kill somebody. You can treat it with no mercy. That can be applied with like vocally saying stuff to the person, or like, I mean, in his case, he was literally like, it's okay, he mistreated me, so I can treat him like garbage, and kill him because he's worthless. He was not treating me well in my home. Even though they talked about, they were in discussion, and also they were very intoxicated too. So, but you know, I think that everyone can interpret the one's religion and philosophy differently. That's why there's also a lot of different versions of a religion.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's like, what's it called?
You have like Christianity, Catholicism, where it's like technically
we go to like different paths of the same kind of belief, or like the same tree, if that makes sense.
Christianity and Judaism, Christianity and Catholicism, you know, a lot of that stuff is intertwined.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody was following through that. The court, and during those times, they did blame that it was a satanic ritual when it might not have been that. And also that the Elg, he used a lot of the philosophies to justify his actions and believed that it was okay to do those things. But if you talk to like other Satanism, and if you also Google and like research about Satanism, to me it didn't seem like it was a bad religion that like was treating, like, to me, just like it didn't seem, when you read about it, it sounds like a lot of about the freedom and individuality. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody know what it's about, that it's not really about worshiping Satan. It's more about like the freedom of a self, like oneself. So that's all I wanted to say about that. There, you know, I think also Tervashonka, I can't say her name, sorry. The one who were the teenager who lived with Elg, did also mention that this was not a satanic ritual. We were just super drunk and didn't really know what we were doing. And that Elg only had like a lot of satanic Satanism vibes and stuff in his home. Like he had like this, what was it? A skeleton and things that people perceived that was basically satanic, I guess. And, you know, you can never really know what truly happened because it's still there's still censorship on the whole issue. It won't be released until I think it's like 2030 something. 40 was it? I think it's like 20
something
years
like
left
that,
or something. Yeah.
But I guess one of the things to kind of, like I said, once again, to feed off of what you're saying is like, I think what's most interesting about this case specifically, how like a lot of that stuff was made up by the public. It was made up by the public, one, because of the fear, and two, for me, it seems like a lot of the issue was more or less just the things he said to the police, which he later did confess that, okay, yeah, I did it to just impress my friends. I said these things to make them feel like, oh, like I'm this top dog, when in reality he wasn't. So at least from what he described, it sounds like he actually was having some sort of attention issue.
Consciousness. He knew what he was
doing. And
he wasn't completely drunk.
Yeah, and I feel like he just wanted this attention, and like he wanted to seem cool. He wanted to seem like, which is regular teenager behavior. But I think somewhere he got confused, and I think truly he does have some sort of mental issue that has gone undiagnosed. And people think, you know, like, hey, you know, mental issues didn't become a thing until recently. I was like, no, a lot of issues went diagnosed for years, for decades, before we brought awareness to it in this generation. And I think he fits in that category. A lot of these serial killers, most of them have some sort of psychological issue. And in his case, I think so as well. And
yeah, he had a lot of history. Like,
yeah, he was not okay in the head. His elevator did not reach the top floor. So it's just one of those situations where, once again, someone who needed help gravitated towards something that was appealing to them, and then unfortunately gave something that, from what we can tell, was relatively harmless, a bad name. And it just sucks because, like the friend said, this was not a satanic ritual, but it was perceived that way out of fear, out of change. You know how a lot of parents get when their kids become teenagers and they start listening to new stuff like, who are you? I don't know this person. But you know the usual routine. So this is during that era when, you know, times were changing. Things were different. The 90s was, especially early 90s, things were shifting. We were shifting into what is today, basically. technology was rapidly evolving. Even though in the 90s, we had Walkmans and CD players and all that stuff. Still have VCRs and VHS
I think
players.
around the 90s, that's where hip hop was more popular over there for you guys.
Yeah.
But over here, rock and stuff like that was still present and still active even during the whole night, like the 90s.
Rock was big over here too. It just depends what community. So for black folk, hip hop, was really getting big. And then, if you were,
because I thought it was like
teenage,
the biggest trend. Yeah.
It was, like I said, hip hop was becoming a lot bigger for sure. And hip hop in a lot of ways was about the same ideas, like the system not being in our favor, about the lifestyles we had. It was about being an individual. It was about being heard. It was about being who we are. And rock was very much about the same message,
The same thing.
It was just a different genre of music, and it took place. It's had a certain stronghold over different communities, but it was all the same message. And that's what brought us to what times we are in today, transitioning into 2000s, where now we're a lot more socially aware of other people and other people's feelings. And, we're much more intelligent than our previous generation, where we didn't ignore things. And, it's just, times are changing.
You can see how the music also, the trends in the music is also changing. The people are also very different compared to how it was back then. Internet also changing everything. I also, now that I think about it, I also want to mention a thing about Elg. That another example that he was before and after the trial, he was very, very unpleasant. He liked this whole thing of being scary, as you mentioned before. He was talking to his friends and brag about what he did, and he liked the thought of being or seem to be looking crazy to other people, or basically he got a lot of love for it. He get a lot of women and letters and people idolizing him for that. And I think he also liked the attention of be seen as this devil worshiper, this scary guy. And there was also a magazine that interviewed him, and he did tell them that he didn't eat any body parts. He just wanted to scare his friends and invoke fear, basically. But we don't really know if he ate body parts or not.
Yeah, we won't know.
But people still say that he's a cannibalism, and everywhere else it's reported that way. But he was acting very inappropriate during the trial. After the trial, he was smiling, he was joking, he was doing the middle finger, and he did the signs of the devil or whatever they said. And he liked the attention. He liked being evil, basically, which is not really what Satanism is.
Nor is what being evil is. It seemed like he just liked the attention. Honestly. He
liked the attention, and he liked being... And he knew that the people idolized him. There were certain people and other women who idolized him.
I always find it so interesting, how a lot of these, when serial
some people
killers,
like dangerous guys. I guess I don't
get it. And this is it's random but related. This is where the stigma that girls like dangerous men come from. Because the situation. Okay. No. You can't say that, because there's some women who do that. Okay, we don't know where their mental state is. Let me tell you something.
Might,
I'm gonna put you onto a story.
You can't say that. No.
I'm gonna put you onto the story that happened in the U.S. This is just a little fun, to lighten it up a little bit. But there was a guy who was I'm not gonna pretend he was a really attractive guy in terms of he had the model features. He was a light skin. I think he was mixed. He was black and white. So his mugshot. I thought
you talked about Ted Bundy or something.
No.
I was
his mugshot. This was maybe 2018. in the US. His mugshot got released. He had like nice eyes, and then girls.
He was like a model.
Girls went crazy over him. Crazy. Girls went so crazy. If I remember correctly, it was a woman who paid his bail. And he got a modeling contract because every girl online was like, "Oh my God, he's so sexy, he's so such and such." He literally beat a sentence, or beat, the stigma of whatever he did, because of how good he looked. And then he was in jail, and girls loved it. They was like, "Oh my God," and it was like, it went viral, and it was just like, I don't get it. Like, I don't. Like me, okay, I truly don't understand it. I really don't.
Okay, listen. There are people out there, like, who are, for example, fans of K-pop, like groups. They do the same thing. Anyone that looks pretty, handsome, they all, like, basically do whatever they want for that person. That's like the pretty privilege thing. In this case, Jarno Elg, I don't think, okay, this is my personal opinion. I don't think he looks attractive. The thing that you mentioned, he looks good. He looks very handsome. The mugshot guy that you mentioned, he looks good. But I wouldn't have paid anything to release him. He still did his crime. But I know there are some people out there, I know there are fans who go above and beyond for like people they like or are attractive to, but I wouldn't say like women in general, like,
I don't think it is either. It's
but I'm just like, want to clarify.
Just too many. That. It's just too many. It's just,
okay. Back to the discussion point that we're gonna talk about now. I also want to mention the things about the censorship part. Because the law enforcement was actually afraid of this inspiring copycat crimes, that people would do similar things, right? That's why they probably had to like censor this so that wouldn't happen. Yeah. Because there were actually a similar case in Norway with a black metal murderer who did like similar things. And they want to minimize the idolization of the murderers. And also there were some underage people there involved, and also the victim was a welfare, can you say user? That sounds weird. But like welfare.
Someone who was on public assistance, basically.
Exactly. And they also, I don't know how the censorship, like how anonymous it was back then, but like nowadays you have to keep them like in a record, but also be like sensitive with the information because of today's world, but I think that's the major reasons why they had to censor it, and also how gruesome this case, like this whole incident was very graphic, so that's also probably why they didn't want to give it out to the world and publish it. Wow, I can't speak today. Publish it. And I think it was a good thing, because there were crimes that happened like this one, but it wasn't as much as it could have been. I think it was another one in England, but it wasn't really like eating anything and in necrophilia and stuff like that.
There's plenty of situations like this, yes.
But that's like outside Scandinavia. And that's basically about this whole case. I also want to mention that this investigation, really well done. They
wasted no time.
Based on that time, they found small things and they got so much out of it.
Yeah, they found a leg or something in the garbage, and they went to town immediately. So they found
searched the garbage by hand.
Yep.
They found a little small tissue that they could analyze.
I think it was a stomach tissue, right?
What?
It was a stomach tissue, right? Because they found his leg.
It was part of the stomach. They could evaluate that he was intoxicated, and that also he had been like drinking a lot throughout his life.
Yeah.
They knew he probably didn't come from a really good like place, and they were like, we might have records of this person, and they found it. Like, I was amazed by how much, like, how based on how much they found, they could get like so much information by the little that they found, basically.
That's what you call good intuition, good detective work, because based on one piece of information, they made an educated guess, which led them into the right direction, which got him the name.
Teamwork with also experts, like
they called him pretty quickly, and this is what investigative skills and pretty much principles should be focused around: teamwork,
A+
and efficiency. Yes, A+ in that case.
A+.
That's what it should be everywhere at all times. Actually doing your jobs, and this was chef's kiss. But let us know what you think about this case. Yes, this is one of the more not trippy, but this is one of the more fun cases. Satanism, all that stuff is very, especially with horror movies nowadays, The Conjuring, it's very fun to talk about because the stigma behind it. And just to clarify, by the way, because I know some of you probably are going to say this, just because we're clarifying the details of Satanism doesn't mean we practice Satanism. Because
exactly,
I know there will be a couple of you that's like, what are you going to say? I'm like, no, we're just making, look, if
we're not
irrational,
preaching for any religion. We just want to make sure that there's a difference between, yeah, exactly. And also environmental factors. I forgot to mention that stuff as well. That they weren't really, like, they were surrounded by a lot of alcohol and drugs and like not the best situations, basically.
Exactly.
Which could have influenced them into what they became, basically.
Yes, your environment is important. Very important.
Religion is not to blame. It's what you do, basically, your acts.
It's people.
You can't use religion to justify your acts, basically. We just want to clarify that.
Yep. So whatever you do, whatever you believe in, that's okay. The problem is what you do, how you choose to instill that belief in other people. That's where the disconnect starts. And as human beings, we are flawed. Most things are written by man, and as man, we are flawed. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope this can open your eyes, or at least expand your mind and your perspective and everything to, do your own research about things and get to know things from a different perspective and not always think of things from one angle. If anything, that's something I want to make sure, we are all growing together as a community. But I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope, that you at least vibed with us today. And also, be sure to, reach out to us on social medias, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. All the links will be in the episode link on whatever podcasting platform. So I think it's a link tree that'll take you to any of those places. Leave us suggestions, leave us comments in the podcast review sections as well, because, we will be reading those also. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. And let's see, what's a good food one for this episode? Last time I went first, but you had like a ton of episodes where you've done the food
you can
thing
do
first.
it again. That's fine.
Okay, let me see. Let me see. I think I'm gonna go simple. Let's do some nice deep fried barbecue chicken.
Oof.
That's great. That's good right there.
I think I died. I love that.
Yeah, that's good.
Also, I do like spicy too.
We can do like a honey chipotle, kind of have a little kick, but it's still got the sweetness. You know what? I got you. But
okay,
that's a good way to leave it. So I hope you stay safe, stay healthy. Make sure your friends and family are safe as well. Protect the ones.
I love
that you
you say stay healthy, but we were like, chicken, like barbecue sauce.
Look, we need to eat to survive here. So come on, food is life. Food is love. So come on, I'm literally, come on. Let's be real. Come on.
Okay.
Eat in moderation, obviously. Don't get like a 42-piece bucket of chicken and just down it in one sitting. I don't support that. But
I mean, do that because like,
I'm not gonna lie, that does sound fire. But self-control is key. Make sure you control yourself, have your vegetables, take your vitamins every day, go to your yearly physical, go to your dentist, yoga. Make sure you're getting your eyes checked out, Make sure you're doing all of that. Your mental health, it's all important. Do everything in balance. And we will see you next week. Peace out.
Bye, everybody.